Hey, have you heard the old adage about horses? It says, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But what about when the horse is an Arabian and the horse's trainer doesn't want him to drink? Well, I'll explain that little conundrum in a moment. But before I do, I want to welcome you to Mornings with Bishop Robert. Thanks for sharing this time with me today. My goal is to introduce people to the Jesus they never knew and help them get to know Him and His Word personally and better. So if our time together today speaks to your heart, then I'd like to invite you to subscribe and like and share this video with a friend. You know, Arabian horses were originally bred in the desert by Bedouins. Their training is rigorous. The key outcome desired of the training is trust, which leads to obedience in crazy situations. The horses must learn to fully obey their master, and so they must learn to fully trust him. So this obedience is tested by depriving the horses of water for many days, and then turning them loose near water. And as the horses get to the edge of the water, just before they drink of that much needed water, the trainer blows his whistle. If the horses have learned to obey, they turn around and come right back to the trainer, who then gives them as much water as they need. You know, the trainer's been carefully observing. He knows what his horses need, and he's certainly not going to allow them to die of thirst. But they must learn to trust him. God knows what his children need, and he wants to supply it. But we too must learn to trust him and obey him. The key is listening for the call of the Master. Today's verse says, "Those who listen to my message and believe in God who sent me have eternal life." When Jesus spoke those words, he was delivering an absolute promise. Now, yesterday we spoke about faith coming from hearing the word of Christ. Our hearing his words is intended to stir up a longing deep within us, like a thirst that cannot be quenched by anything other than Christ himself. You know, there's a sense in which you and I are like desert Arabian horses. Trust is the foundation of our relationship with Jesus. Though the initial stages of our life and relationship are often sweet and intimate, facing times of difficulty and challenge are necessary if we're going to fully develop. Those times are like a desert. They feel dry and often God seems somehow distant. You find yourself wondering where he may have gone and if you've done something to drive him away. In other words, you're becoming aware of a spiritual thirst. But the key goal of times like this is not to develop endurance in spite of thirst, as valuable as that may be. It is to develop trust. Because when we learn to trust, then we're free to submit to his lordship. And it's our willing submission that opens the vast provision of his blessings, his gifts, and his power. Like the desert Arabian horse, we must learn to fully obey our master. So we must learn to fully trust him. You know, Christ often uses another example to teach us this lesson, that of a shepherd and his sheep. He says his sheep hear his voice. He knows them, and they know him and his voice. And as he calls to them, they willingly follow him. But then he makes a strange statement, given the context of the shepherd-sheep illustration he's making. He says, I give them eternal life, and they'll never perish, and no one will snatch them out of my hand. Belief and obedience go hand in hand. He calls, and they follow. Whoever believes in the Son has eternal life. Whoever does not obey the Son shall not see life. Literally, it's a life and death decision. Whoever believes in him is not condemned. But whoever does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only Son of God. Now, the will of God the Father is that everyone who sees his Son believes in him and receives eternal life. Life leads to lordship. Obedience is the path of blessing and intimacy. You know, I recently heard a pastor say, "Is God my friend?" Of course. But God was my Lord before he was my friend. My friendship with God can only go where his lordship has already been. Listening leads to lordship. Obedience leads to blessing. Eternal life begins here and now as we walk out our faith, utilize our gifts, and expand his kingdom. Jesus says, "Those who listen to my message and believe in God who sent me have eternal life." Well, we've used up all the time we have for now. But before you go, could I ask you to help me introduce people to the Jesus they never knew and help them get to know him and his word personally and better? Please like this video. Help more people see it. And click follow or subscribe. Oop, it's over on this side. Click follow or subscribe so you and I can get together every day. Hey, the comments section's a great place to leave a question. And one more thing. Share this with a friend, would you please? Because when you do, you're part of a team sharing the love of Christ with people all over the world. Thank you for listening and obeying and helping.